Hey, what's up guys, it's DarkArmedDuelist, and today doing a Master Duel Swordsoul deck profile. So I'm really excited to do this for you guys because this deck is an extremely powerful, consistent deck to play on Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel because of all the amazing synchro monsters you can play in this build. So without further ado, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell in there so you can become part of Notification Squad, and definitely check out the Patreon down in the description below for all those awesome rewards. Like getting your name description every single video, getting assigned cards in the mail, and even getting to request a deck profile every single month to your Patreon. So without further ado, let's get straight on into this. So first off, we're going to be playing 3 copies of Swordsoul Moyi. Moyi is a definite 3-of in the deck, and this card is probably the best normal summon in the entire build. Because if this card is normal or special summon, you can reveal a Swordsoul card or a worm monster in your hand to be able to special summon a Swordsoul token that is a worm, tuner, water, level 4, 0 attack, and 0 defense, which is an amazing ability because all of your Swordsoul tokens are tuners, helping you go in for synchro plays using them as material, which is so powerful in the deck. This card also has a really cool ability that while that token is in the monster zone, the player who summoned it cannot special summon monsters from the X deck except for synchro monsters, which is not that big of a deal because that's usually all we're going in for anyways. But this card also has the ability, if this card is sent to the graveyard as a synchro material, you can draw a card, which is a crazy powerful effect. We then play 2 copies of Longyun. Longyun is an amazing 2-of in the build because this card is currently at 2 in Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel. We can only play 2 copies, but it's a really cool ability that you can discard one other Swordsoul card or a worm monster to special summon this card from your hand, then special summon out a Swordsoul token to your side of the field. And if this card is sent to the graveyard as a material for a synchro summon, you can actually inflict 1200 points of damage to your opponent, which is a crazy powerful effect to just do some burn damage against your opponent so you can go in for game. We then play 2 copies of Taie. Taie is a definite 2-of in the build and is a really awesome combo piece in the deck because this card has the ability you can banish a Swordsoul card or a worm monster from your graveyard to special summon out a Swordsoul token to your side of the field. And if this card is sent to the graveyard as a synchro material, you can send a Swordsoul card or a worm monster from your deck to the grave, which is a really cool ability just to foolish burial a card to the graveyard that you need. We then play 3 copies of Incredible Ecclesia. This card is a definite 3-of in the deck. It has an amazing ability. If your opponent controls more monsters than you do, you can special summon this card from your hand. And also, during the main phase, quick effect, you can tribute this card to special summon a Swordsoul monster from your hand or deck to your side of the field, which is an amazing effect just to instantly get cards like Moyi onto your side of the field, or even Taie on your side of the field, which is just really, really good. We then play 3 copies of Tenyi Spirit Ashuna. Ashuna is definitely a 3-of in the deck and has a really cool ability. If you control no effect monster, you can special summon this card from your hand, which all of your different Tenyis actually share that common effect. And if you control a face-up non-effect monster, which your tokens count as non-effect monsters, then you can manage this card from your hand or graveyard to special summon a Tenyi monster from your deck, except another copy of this card. Also, you cannot special summon monsters for the rest of the turn except worm monsters, which is not that big of a deal because that's pretty much always summoned in this deck anyways. It does lock you in, which locks you into some combos, but it's still a really good card in the deck. We then play 3 copies of Vashuda. Vashuda is amazing because this card is a bounce, which is why we play this card as a 3-of in the build, because this card has a really cool ability that if you control a face-up non-effect monster, you can manage this card from your hand or graveyard, and then target one card your opponent controls and return it back to the hand, which is great to be able to bounce cards off your opponent's side of the field back to their hand. We then play just 2 copies of Adahara. Adahara is really good as a 2-of in the build because this card has a great ability that if you control a face-up non-effect monster, you can manage this card from your hand or grave, target one of your banished worm monsters except this card and add it back to your hand, which is great to be able to grab one of your cards that's banished. We then play a single copy of Shathana. Shathana is just a really good 1-of in the deck as an extender, and this card is amazing because it is a level 4 that can special summon itself to your side of the field if you control no effect monster, which is just amazing. We then play a single copy of Arch Nemesis Protos. This is insane that this card is still a 3 in Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel. We only need a single copy of it because it's so searchable, but it's insane that you can still play this card in Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel, which is why I've been playing this deck so much recently. But this card is nuts. It has a really cool ability that cannot be normal summoned or set. It must first be special summoned from your hand by banishing 3 monsters with different attributes, which is easy to do in this deck from your graveyard and or face up from field. It cannot be destroyed by card effects, and you can declare 1 monster attribute on the field and destroy all monsters on the field with that attribute. Also, until the end of the next turn, neither player can special summon monsters with that attribute, which is just absolutely crazy how powerful this card's ability is. This card is absolutely nuts and is a definite 1-of in the deck to be able to summon to your side of the field and basically lock down your opponent. We then play 3 copies of Ash Blossom. Ash Blossom's an amazing 3-of in the deck because this card just stops your opponent from touching the deck. We then play 3 copies of Maxi. Maxi is insane that this card is still a 3 in Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel, and it's definitely a 3-of in the build because this card lets you draw a card every single time your opponent special summons, which is absolutely insane. Either your opponent's going to let you draw a bunch of cards, or they're just going to stop playing during their turn, but regardless, you're going to get at least a draw off of this card, making this card a definite 3-of in the build, and one of the scariest hand traps ever created. So that's it for the monsters, guys. Let's get into the spells. So for the spells, we're going to start with a single copy of Swordsoul Sacred Summit. This card is a monster reborn that's searchable in the deck, which is why we're playing this card as a 1-of in the deck. We then play a single copy of Crossout Designator. This card is amazing just to stop your opponent from hand trapping you while you're going in for all of your plays. We then play 2 copies of Called by the Grave. Called by the Grave is a definite 2-of in the deck just to stop your opponent from hand trapping you. Works really good with your copy of Crossout Designator. We then play 2 copies of Pot of Desires. Pot of Desires is a really good 2-of in the deck, just to help you dig into the deck for more cards you need. Plus, everything that we play in the deck, we play as a 3-of or a 2-of that we really need. Or if you're in the case of your copies of your Arch Nemesis, you can search it before you activate this card, which is super easy to do. This card is a definite 2-of in the build because it just helps out so much. We then play 3 copies of Swordsoul Emergence. Swordsoul Emergence is a crazy powerful Rhoda for the deck because it has the ability to let you add a Swordsoul monster from your deck to your hand, or if you control a Synchro monster, you can add a Worm monster instead, basically letting you add your copy of Protoss, which is absolutely insane. This card is a definite 3-of in the deck and is such a powerful card in this build that you just got to play 3 copies of it. Plus, it's searchable. So that's it for the spells, guys. Let's get into the traps. So for the traps, we're just going to be playing a few traps, and we're going to start out with Swordsoul Blackout. Swordsoul Blackout is a definite 2-of in the build, because this card is basically like Icarus Attack. It lets you target a worm monster that you control, and 2 cards that your opponent controls, and destroy them, which is a really cool ability to pop 2 cards that your opponent controls. This card is a definite 2-of in the deck. The reason I play 2 instead of just 1 is because I do play the copies of Pot of Desires, so you don't want to banish your 1 copy that you have in the deck, so I play 2 just to make sure I'm going to have 1 live. We then play 3 copies of Infinite Impermanence. Impermanence is a definite 3-of in the build just to stop your opponent's monster effects while also locking down entire columns of spells and traps if you set this card to your side of the field, making this card a definite 3-of in the deck. So that's it for the main deck, guys. Let's get into the extra deck. So for the extra deck, guys, we're going to start off with Swordsoul Grandmaster. This card is an amazing 2-of that you're always going to summon first off your copy of Moyi, and has a really cool ability. If this card is synchro summoned, you can add to your hand or banish 1 Swordsoul card from your deck. This card literally searches your Rhoda Swordsoul Emergence, which is absolutely insane. They can get you to any other card that you want, which is just super cool. This card is also a walking negate because it has the ability that quick effect, you can banish 1 Swordsoul card or a worm monster from your hand or graveyard, and then target 1 other effect monster on the field and negate its effects until the end of the turn, which is a really cool ability for this card to have. We then play a single copy of the Supreme Sovereign. This card is amazing with your copies of Pot of Desires because it gets absolutely massive and also reduces your opponent's attack points down, which is really nice. Because for each banished card, this card gains 100 attack and defense, and monsters your opponent control lose 100 attack and defense, which is really good. It also has a crazy powerful ability. If this card would be destroyed by a card effect, you can banish 1 card from your graveyard instead, and if a card is banished except during the damage step, you banish 1 card each from both your opponent's field and graveyard, which combos really well with your copy of Blackout to be able to target this card and then just use its ability to protect itself and then banish additional cards that your opponent has, essentially dealing with 4 cards for just a copy of Blackout and this card, which is absolutely insane. We then play a single copy of the Sinister Sovereign. This card is great because it does a lot of burn damage to your opponent, which is just just really, really good because it has the ability, if this card is synchro summon, or if another worm monster is synchro summon, while this monster is on the field, you get to draw a card, which is a really cool ability just to additionally draw cards off this card's ability if you do synchro summon an additional monster while this card's already face up on the field. But this card also does a lot of burn damage as well, because if your opponent special summons a monster except during the damage step, then you can banish one of those monsters, and if you do, inflict 1200 points of damage to your opponent. And then when your opponent activates a spell or trap card or effect, quick effect, you can banish that card, and if you do, inflict 1200 points of damage to your opponent, but you can only use each effect of this card once per turn, so it can do a total of 2400 points of burn damage to your opponent every turn, which is absolutely insane. We then play a single copy of Baron de Fleur. This card is amazing as a walking negate in the deck, and also can pop cards on the field, which is just absolutely crazy. One copy of Chow Fang. Chow Fang is just really good to be able to make in this build, and it's just an amazing card overall. We then play a single copy of Draco Berserker. Draco Berserker is really good to be able to make because this card is a walking banish. You can also deal with 2 monsters a battle phase, which is just absolutely crazy. We play 2 copies of Boxia. Boxia is just really good in this deck because this card balances cards, and also it's basically a walking monster reborn, which is insane. I absolutely love this card in the deck because it has the ability once per turn. You can target one card that you control and a level 4 lower monster in your graveyard, destroy that card on the field, and if you do, special summon the other monster from the graveyard, which is just such a cool ability. We then play a single copy of Yazi. Yazi is just really, really good in the deck overall as a 1-of. We then play a single copy of Psychic End Punisher. Psychic End Punisher is just insane. It basically just cleans up games. It's very easy to make this card because while your life points are less than or equal to your opponent's, this synchro summon card is unaffected by your opponent's activated effects. And also, once per turn, you can pay 1000 life points, target one monster that you control and one card your opponent controls and banish them. And in the start of the battle phase, you can make this card gain attack equal to the difference between your life points and your opponent's life points, meaning this card is going to get absolutely huge to OTK your opponent. We then play a single copy of Shaman of the Tenyi. Shaman of the Tenyi comes up every so often in the deck, and it's still a really good combo piece in the deck. And finally, we play 3 copies of Monk of the Tenyi. Monk of the Tenyi is really good as a 3-of in the build because you can link away your Tenyi spirits to be able to make this card, so you do have a non-effect monster on your side of the field. And it's just a really good card to be able to work with your Tenyi spirits. So, that's it for the deck, guys. I hope you enjoyed. This deck is absolutely insane. If you guys have never played Swordsoul on Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel, you should definitely give this deck a try because it's still one of the most powerful decks to be able to play. Ever since this deck was released on Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel, this card has been insane and one of my favorite decks to play because it's just so cool and I love synchro summoning. So, that's going to do it for this one, guys. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell in there so you can become part of the notification squad, and we'll see you guys in the next video. See you later, guys.